Alrighty, so we're gonna do another fun and easy project with you today. And definitely I'm on the trend here of reusing a bunch of canvases. This one I started with my level 1 cert. There's a second board there that we have to do for assignments to get your certification. And because I certify, I teach lots of students, so sometimes we start boards and I got back to finishing this one, and I've already done this board so many times with students. So yeah, definitely I can start from scratch with a new student. They want to see the process, right? So I'll grab another board. Or I sometimes use those canvas pads too, which are quite nice to use too. So hopefully you've seen that in another project if you like to use them. You know, these are great exercises a lot of times that, you know, you don't always want to put on your wall or give away. Reuse these canvases, guys. And sometimes I'll go ahead and I sand them down really good with a medium block to get all the raised areas, especially when you're doing dots or doing a lot of scruffy work, or you got, you know, lots of ridges on your stroke work. Those bumps are going to be seen in your next painting. So definitely file them down good, and then take a damp cloth and just wipe off the dust, and you're ready to go. So again, like I said, a lot of times I'll go ahead and I'll just whitewash the whole canvas again and then start my background. So I figured I would do it with you again here today, and show you different ways I kind of approach things sometimes. It's always fun, right? We're going to be doing a silhouette tonight with some nice hot summer sunset colors. And so I got engine red, I've got the pure orange, I've got the moon yellow, and then of course we'll need some white. The first time is not going to be your colors exactly, and it's definitely you got to put a little bit more white into everything. But I figure if we start, you know, with this color blend and then do a second coat, it'll be just like us doing a base coat, and then the second coat should come up a little nicer. So at least we're starting the design and base coating and getting rid of, you know, any evidence that there was something here before. Okay, so definitely want to see how things are going to cover, and the yellows and, you know, especially daffodils a little bit more translucent. So I do like using moon yellow a little bit more. I want to try and just, you know, right now cover what's going on here. And you see that it's going to be very translucent for the first coat. This is the idea of kind of what we're going to do, but definitely we need some white in there. Okay, so it's going to be like pastel-y, kind of pinky, pastel-y, kind of orangey. So just keep adding a little bit of that white in there. And slowly we'll start introducing some yellow and more white. Right, so like I said, we're just kind of playing with, you know, the idea of what we're going to do. Right? And then also a lot of times, sometimes I don't see some areas that I didn't sand properly. So usually after the first coat, I definitely sometimes see some ridged areas that might or might not show through. You know, if we're doing a lot of heavy texture, you know, right on that same area, you probably won't see it. Okay, so just adding a little bit of yellow, a little bit of white in there. Okay, and you can see we've got a little bit of a gradient going on. We can still see through things. Right, so definitely I want to go and pat a little bit. Stepping down, see, getting a little bit more coverage. Especially on these dark brown areas there. I was doing sunflower. And I'm just playing here, guys. I really am not taking this too seriously. I'm just kind of introducing the same tones as what we're going to be using in the design. And need a blow dryer here to make things a little bit quicker. And just up and down patting. A little bit more white. And then just try to, like, ever so lightly try to keep those peaks a little bit. And by the way, my sponge was dry too, guys, so when it's wet, sometimes we get a lot more translucent color from that, and then also sometimes it raises bubbles in the paint as well. So and there's only so much we can do. Like I said, you definitely have to keep just adding a bit more white. Try to build up as much of the coverage as possible in any areas that might be dark. Right? And then if there's any little peaky areas from the sponge, so hopefully you can see there's a little bit of texture going on. That's okay. Just let it stay there. It's very easy to sand that down. Okay, so I've got some good coverage here. For the first coat. And then now I'm going to blow dry it. So make sure that you are staying a good hand's worth away. Staying up at least 10 inches away from my canvas and a low setting, so then that way it's not going to get too hot. And then make sure that it's not too sticky and tacky, right? So I still feel it a little bit tacky, especially in some of the thicker areas that I did. And if you're too rough, you put too much moisture in at this point to go put another second coat, you may lift off your first coat. So you definitely got to make sure this is good and dry. Take another few more seconds, or take a break. Expect to, have a break in between. Just get this done and then go off and do some chores or whatever you need to do, and then come back to it so it's really good and dry. Alright, so it's definitely a little bit drier. I'm going to go ahead and repeat the process here. Pick up a little bit of orange, pick up a little bit of red, and just start going back and forth again to do a second coat. Okay, this way we know that everything's all nice and smooth. And I didn't even sand it again. All I did was dry it and start painting again. So yeah, that looks great. Like I said, I was expecting, maybe I'll have to sand a little bit. So you check your canvas. Like I said, if you see any remnants of raised areas from your stroke work, right, you get the coverage, now I can't see through it. If there's a chance that there's any, it's so minor. It's so minor, I'm not going to worry about it. Alright, so now I've got the coverage that I'm looking for. And like I said, you might see a little tiny bit, but the third coat for sure, when we start doing the actual colors that I want to add a little bit more, right? So also, guys, the benefit of letting this dry really good is this multi-surface paint has sealer in it. So if you're the type that's still not too accurate about your stroke work, and if you want to erase anything, being a multi-surface with a sealer, it's going to help, you know, protect that back layer so you won't rub off your background when you maybe erase something, you know, down the road when we start doing our actual fine lines. Right, so if there's anything you don't like, you can definitely erase it. But it's still really, really fresh. And it really does technically take 24 hours to completely dry. And then it also takes 21 days for it to completely cure. So you can use this on glass, metal, canvas, wood, right? Anything. So it's still going to be the same thing because of the sealer in it. And that's why I love using the multi-surface. It also is a much thicker, richer paint than the original formula. And it also has a bit of semi-shine in there as well. So it's not so matte and flat. Right? So you don't even have to put sealer on anything if you don't want to, unless it's an outside thing. Then I definitely add more sealer to it. You know, because especially us up in Canada with our harsh winters. But yeah, definitely this is just a canvas board. I've painted it already once before. With all those extra layers too, it adds like an extra coat of gesso. And usually these canvases already come with 2 or 3 coats of gesso on them. So adding, you know, the old design, filing that down, and then we put another cover coat just to start introducing. And then definitely giving it a little bit of another center. And it's going in the same direction. Make sure your paint is really good and dry when you're sanding, because it's just going to gunk up your file. So if you can see that there's some little marks here, there's my sunflower edges of my petals still that were maybe a little bit raised. Very, very minor, guys. So again, some of these little dots are from the canvas weave. These cheaper canvas boards definitely are a lot bumpier than some of the other ones. So with this design today, like I said, there's lots of bonuses going on for the reason why I decided to reuse an old canvas. Definitely, I want this really nice and smooth. So then that way, when we're doing all our really, really fine grass blades, it's definitely going to be super smooth for you. So if you don't have an old canvas around that you want to reuse, you know, especially the boards, I like them because they're a lot more sturdier and you can get a lot smoother look from a board compared to a wrap canvas. You can see that I've popped up some color, and if you want to go ahead and add a little bit more, right, we're using up everything really good here on our plate, so I don't have to feel so guilty leaving wet paint here. And I'm just going to go ahead and give it another coat, right, just so that we can get it all looking nice and covered. Right, so we have some areas here that are a little bit darker green. That's from my scruffy donut that we were doing. So it was still a little bit raised in texture. Okay, so this is going to be a fast and easy project, guys, for you. So definitely take the time to play and prepare your canvas. Okay, so you can see that it's a little bit translucent. Right, it's better definitely to do thin coats, right? And then just in case you have remnants of color around your edges from your last design, it doesn't hurt to give out a little bit of coverage. And again, this is just priming coats, guys, just priming coats, right? Again, I need to cover that a little bit more. Because when you're swooping, you can see it, and it's too thin. So I definitely got to pat it on in these trouble areas. There's still a few raised areas there, but that's okay. Like I said, they're really minor. And then if anything still bugs you, like I said, this is usually I can see those areas raised when I do a coat of paint. Okay, so there you go. That coverage is much better. And then I'll let this dry again, and then we're ready to do the background. Okay, so in the meantime, don't let these guys dry out on you. If you want to continue on and blow dry this and continue on your design, definitely fold them in half sometimes is good, and don't take up as much space. And then you can pop it in the one side of your brush holder side, and then you still have room over here on this side to put your brush when you're waiting to go to the sink. Okay, so never drown your brushes, guys. Make sure that the water is not higher than your silver fuel. Okay, so these brushes, as long as I got a lot of fingerprints on there, but I am doing a lot better. If you see some of my older videos, I drown my brushes for the longest time because I do a lot of painting and the paint parties, and I ended up sticking them in water and not getting to them right away. So that wood will expand with the water and the paint will crack. So then they'll start looking yucky. But I have to say my bristles are still good because I'd rather keep them moist and let the paint dry. Even in the sponges, they'll start to get hard on the edges. Alright. If you can see it, sometimes the light reflections, a little bit of raised area. I know, I'm being fussy here, but definitely I just want to put just the smallest amount of paint on my plate so then that way I can not feel guilty about wasting paint here. And then we're going to let this dry a little bit more and test it again, give it a light sanding to see if I get anything more off again. Alright, so sometimes if you don't notice it, give it a little good, the first time you're doing it, you might be a little bit nervous to sand too much. We learn as we go, right? Do baby steps and then add more, right? So now I've used both my sponges. Alright, so I definitely can go and wash those if I like now. Oops, watch those water drips. And, because they'll pull off paint too. So we're just going to let that dry really good, and then I'll come back and we'll start our background. Alrighty, so I played with this a couple more times, because I wasn't in a big hurry. And I went and washed my sponges, and so definitely I want to put them in a towel, let them dry really good. But if you're in a hurry, make sure that you're really getting all that moisture out as much as possible. Right, so they're still a little bit damp. Sometimes you'll see, like I said, if you've seen other projects that I've done with sponges, definitely we always usually dampen them a little bit too in the beginning. But with the oranges and reds and yellows, they're so translucent. And I don't want pink, right? Having that little bit of a drier sponge won't water down your paint. Okay, so this is when I don't like to use too much medium or too much water, is with these oranges and some yellows. And apple red is definitely quite translucent. And so we're going to use engine red, a little bit stronger and gives you a little bit better coverage. But if all you have is apple red, then you can use that too. Just expect it to be a little bit translucent. And really, we're not going to be using a lot of it because we are going to actually transition out into blues, right? So I want this to come a little bit darker. So hopefully you guys have some dioxine purple or even violet pansy will work. Don't need a lot of that. And the Prussian blue. Okay, so I do want to kind of see a merge of our rainbow kind of sky, right? So I want to see that little tiny bit of merge, hopefully, of purple, and then progress out into the dark blue. Right, so this is an evening sunset. The dark midnight, you know, is starting to come up behind it. So I'm not sure if you've seen some of my other stories about where I live now in Goderich. We are definitely one of the very few places that get to have 2 sunsets in one night, right? Because we have a big cliff that the town is built off of. So we actually have to drive down this big hill to go down to the beach. So you can watch it definitely down on the beach. And then if you're quick, you can get back up to the top where the cliff is, and there's a bunch of parks up there that you can actually watch it again. So it's pretty cool. So this is Goderich, Ontario in Canada. And yeah, definitely a beautiful, known for its sunsets all along the Highway 21, all the way up the coast of that Lake Huron. You'll see beautiful sunsets over there. So yeah, a lot of tourist areas. And so yeah, definitely inspired. There's so many photographers on our local groups taking pictures of our sunsets all the time. Inspired. We're just the beginning of August here, and everybody even down in the States has been complaining about really hot, humid days. So definitely was inspired by some of our fields that we have around here too. We have a lot of farmers' fields. And so this is kind of where all my inspiration came from today. Okay, so we're going to ignore this little light spot here. At the bottom here, like I said, you've seen the picture already. You've got the recording and all the PDFs. So it's showing you that, you know, the very bottom area is your ground. So I want to have, you know, maybe 2 or 3 fingers, about 3 fingers on this, what do we got, 11 by 14 canvas here today. So if you're doing a little bit bigger, that's great. You know, you can do any size you want, even a small little one if you want to. So it's all about proportions, guys. If you put, you know, half and then half again, it's about a quarter. So a lot of our designs definitely are usually around a third, but I want you guys down along the quarter area that is going to be blackened out with the silhouette. And we're going to still want that nice bright yellow here, and then slowly turning into the orange. But what I want to do is create a sun effect as well. So we're going to start doing like a more of a circle technique, and slowly get darker and darker as we get out to the very edge. All right, so we got to start off with a bit of white. So I want to have the white at the tip of my sponge. Okay, very lightly picking it up, because the more you press, you're definitely just going to put the paint right in the sponge, and then you got to press even harder to get it back out. Okay, so just a gentle touch. Pull out just a little bit off the edge of the pile. You don't have to scoop up your whole pile, right? Just a little bit off the edge. It's better to add a little bit of paint at a time than try to put too much in, and then you can't control it. Okay, so what I want you guys to do a little bit differently is usually we double load side to side this way. I want you to double load on the side here. So I gotta flatten my paint out a little bit so that I can come over and grab just that little bit of yellow and slightly blend it over, and I want it over on the side of my sponge. So if you guys are left-handed guys, you want to work in the other direction, then you know, as long as you know that the yellow is going to be on the top and the white is going to be on the very edge. Okay, so we want to start off by building like a little bit of a circle, and this is too far over the splotch. I would definitely want it to be about, even though we're going to be, you know, a quarter this way, I do want your sun glow to trying to be maybe about in the third area, and we want it to be just below half. Okay, so a lot of times I like to use chalk as my guide. All right, and we are actually going to be painting this design horizontally. Okay, but it's a lot easier to pull that sponge like we were doing practicing kind of a little bit. It's, you know, pulling it towards you and back and forth is a lot easier to get those nice hazy streaks. Okay, so definitely, you know, if you want to kind of pick, you know, put a little cross in the middle and another one there. Doesn't have to be measured, guys, just kind of eyeball it, right? So if you put this in half again, this is kind of where our ground is going to be, right? And then right under here, about a third, it's almost there, but definitely I want it to be moved over about 2/3 in from the edge, so you're a good handful away, right? And then just underneath the halfway mark. Okay. Actually, I should put that down, take a picture. Right, so now that we have our little marker there, okay, so why I want you to have the white on the edge is because we're going to spin. Spin our canvases around. Right, so definitely where that white spot is. So we're going to spin that around, and the yellow is going to be on the outside. Keep grabbing a little bit more yellow. And we're going to keep spinning that around. So if I swipe too much, I'm going to get those streaky marks. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is kind of tap it. Tap, 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 tap. So we want a little bit more white, maybe a little bit lower. Right, keep that on the outside. So if you're left-handed, like I said, I know I have a couple southpaws in my group. You just, spin it the other way or whatever way is comfortable for you. But just making sure that you have your darker colors always being added to the outside. Okay, so we are going to come in and intensify this white a little bit more. But I want you to kind of slowly pounce this gradient out a little at a time, picking up more of that yellow on the very edge now. Right? Get this area nice and wet. And then when we start picking up a little bit of orange, it'll definitely start to get softer slowly, right? So we're not going into a wet area. So I'm just going around the edges, picking up yellow all the way around. Keep spinning that canvas around. Try to be, in a circle. Right? Tip over onto the left-hand side if you're picking up too much of that white. Right? You can control by rocking your sponge. Right, so now make sure you're happy with this because you don't want to be coming back. Okay, so make sure that you've got a good amount of yellow. I'm just going to come down. See right here? A little bit shy. And I want it to kind of fade out a little bit too. I don't want it to be like a hard line. Just want to pounce that around a little bit more with that yellow. Make sure that you're happy. And then now we're going to go over and pick up a little bit of orange on top of that yellow. So deep down, there's still some yellow in there. And also we're just merging around the edge. Right? Slowly pat, pat, pat to build up that gradient. Up and down, no swirling. Up and down. Keep adding orange. And I'm getting little flecks of white, that's okay. Just kind of soften them out a little bit. Keep spinning your canvas around. So it's just basically one sponge around. Okay, so we still have to have a little bit of edge here. We want to add some red. And slowly keep moving around here now. See how yellow that is? Picked up some yellow lower down. Some orangey. Tap, tap, tap. Soft blending it into that yellow. If you need to pick up a little bit of yellow on the tip where the white was, definitely you can pick up a little bit of yellow there. It might help soften that white. Keep adding orange. Tap, tap, tap. Try not to have thick lines that are going to be drying hard. I tap it out. So make sure that you're happy with it. So I can see an area here that's not as orange. That nice orange glow. Take your time. Step back a little bit so you can see it. There we go. We got a nice glow going on there. We just want to add a little bit more yellow. Soften that orange a little bit. Right, but don't go back into that white area. Stay in that last skirt. And if you feel like you got too much paint on your sponge, guys, then just grab an old rag and blot it off a bit, right? So that you can control it. Okay, so now I want to go over and pick up some red on that orange area. Again, slowly working my way out. Okay, overlapping into the wet orange so they can get a nice soft gradient. Up and down. Yeah. So there shouldn't be any more white. You just blot that out if it keeps coming back. That's why I picked up a little bit of yellow instead now at the tip, because I find if it does touch down a little bit, the yellow will be nice and bright still for to add into the red, right? So definitely want to have a nice bright red. We don't want pink. Okay, I'm tipping right over, trying to use the side of my sponge. Right, so you can use a little bit lower of an area along the side. If you feel like you have an area here that is not blending, you can let it dry, go over it again with some yellow. I wouldn't worry too much about it because a lot of your grass is going to hide things. Okay, so we don't want that line. We want a nice pouncy look, kind of, right? So, and we don't want to take away that orange, which I'm almost gone in a little too far. So try to get out a little bit further, right? So I might have went a little bit too far in. Okay, but I'm going to keep it going. Keep playing with this sponge. Okay, so I have a nice band of red going around now. That's what I love about these silicone mats. That you can definitely just pounce over it and not worry about your table. Nice hot summer sun here. And did leave just a little bit of a corner here, so we can deepen this corner here a little bit. So if you feel like you want to soften anything now, again, keeping this tip, you know, your color of lightness, right? So I got a little bit of orange left in here. So if I felt like I can kind of come in here with a little bit of orange now to kind of blur some of these areas very, very, very lightly. There we go. Now I'm getting that softer, hazy look. Okay, so we don't want to move on to that next color until you're happy with this result. Okay. We have a nice band here coming a little bit wider here because it's good 3 inches, a good 4 fingers worth, you know, of red here. I definitely want to bring out a little bit more red. which I'm liking where that is. You can even leave it to that side too. So you can play around with this. And again, the way the wind goes and the grass, you see, I've done it because I'm right-handed. I'm going to pick my favorite way so that I'm easy to do the stroke. But you guys that are left-handed, I can't stress this enough for this project. Make the wind go the other way. Reverse the whole painting, right? So then that way that you can stroke in the direction that you're actually happy with. And in fact, I'm going to actually reverse the picture in the PDF for you guys so that you can actually see it in the left-handed version. Because I just know it's not like the way you see, it's just your hand motion is going to be easier to make that, you know, grass blades go this way if your hand just rocks so easy and comfortably, where ours is going this way very easy because we're right-handed. So that's the only reason. Okay, so before this wet stuff definitely dries too fast here, I definitely still want to keep merging. I try to do this a little bit quick, and what I'm doing is I'm just going over to grab a little bit more red, and I want to re-wet this area. It's probably a little bit tacky dry here again. I'm just kind of sponging this out right around the edge because I want to have that nicer darker red here on the edge. Just a little bit more. Right, so we should be getting that orangey red, and then a little true red, and then we're going to start adding a little bit of purple. I'm going to keep spinning it. It's just easier to keep spinning. Wet this area here. This is how the colors will merge, right? So now I got to kind of push a little harder to get that paint out. And then now I want to just come over and remember, dark colors, they take over so easy, guys. So just the smallest little hair, just to start introducing into that verge of wet red. Right, and again, now we can switch to, instead of orange on the tip, right? So then that way, if we're accidentally hitting anything, then at least it's going to be the color that we're trying to merge with. Okay, so just the smallest amount of paint. Again, I'm kind of swirling and I shouldn't be. I definitely want to just try to get that paint in there. But then before I leave, I'm just patting up and down. Okay. Again, I might need a little bit more wet red just to soften that dioxine purple a little bit because it is so super dark and we don't want it to be overpowering. Okay, I still want some of that red in there and just an introduction of dioxine. The sun is, I want this dioxine to definitely come up around the top. Okay, so try to pull back on your sponge a little bit too, right? Because if you don't, you're going to end up with these circles, right? So make sure that you're kind of going slow and moving around, up and down, you know, around so that you're softening that hard edge. Come down just a little bit on the corner. We need to keep adding some of this red in here. Okay, don't let this area dry. And now that we got the purple in there, we can't come back in here yet to soften any orange area. Okay, so a lot of times with playing around with gradients like this, you know, sometimes you have to go in and do another layer, right? So this is why I know that I'm trying to do this so slowly to build up. I don't want it to be taking away that red. Okay, so now that we've got a little bit of purple in there, like, well, I told you I wasn't going to use a lot. So now I want to introduce more of the blue. So with the blue on the purple should darken things a little bit more. Right? If you get too much purple, blot it out on a towel and then go pick up your blue. So see how I have this little bit of clean area that hasn't been any purple. So I definitely want to try and get that nice strong Prussian in there. Just to add some depth. And really we could have brought out a lot more red. So let's just get that little bit more darker up here. You want to make sure that if you're even with these boards, sometimes it is nice to make sure that you're just kind of tapping the color around the edge. Because if you're using that little hack there that I shared with you with those plastic stickies, then you can just hang this on the wall, and then you don't want that white to be showing weird and dirty around the edges, right? So see down here is a little bit lighter with the oranges. So I do have some area here that hasn't been used and affected by any of the colors. If I felt like I wanted to come in and try to tap in a little bit, like I could use my other sponge. And then definitely this is round, so you gotta make sure that you're kind of bending it over. So I want to see in my sun here, where did I go off? I love the white, I love the yellow, I love this transition of orange. It's just kind of over here that's a little bit too heavy. So I definitely feel like this one, I need to add a little bit more orange, right, to soften out. And hopefully, again, this is still a little bit wet, that you're able to still pick up some of that red with this orange. So just very lightly trying to not get any strong lines. Keep moving around. And when you're up and down motion, you should be able to keep applying the color. Keep grabbing more paint. Right, so it's a little bit too much orange. Right, dab some of that out on the other corner here, trying to keep the other corner a little bit dry. So as I'm happy, I can come in and pick up a little bit more red. Right, but I definitely keep looking at this. I think I need a little bit of yellow too. Right, just to bring that up a little bit higher. That dirty yellowy orange. So it's always easier to go darker a little at a time. Dab, dab, dab very lightly with some yellow. Soften that out. And then slowly get into your darker colors. Just light tapping. Sure it's wet on wet. And again, I'm getting some little corners. So I'm trying to really pull back on my sponge. To not give me that sharp line. A little bit more orangey red. Especially where if it's a little bit dirty looking from the purple. So we definitely maybe need to add a little bit more orange to kind of lighten that up a little bit. To have, it doesn't have to be totally perfect. I see a little bit of discoloration here. And you can definitely let this dry and go over it again if you feel. It's one of those nights there that just there's hardly any wind and just enough there to kind of blow the grass over. And there's no clouds in the sky. It was just one of those nights. So again, we still have that purple on the other side of our sponge. So try not to darken this, you know, any more than it is. I want to keep this a little bit more red looking down here. So that way the top area here is going to be darker. Bringing in a little bit more orange. Yeah, that's a little bit nicer. Trying to bring it out a little bit more. So as it starts to dry, whoops. Pull off the heaviness with your fingers. You can start to build up that color a little bit more. All right, so there's my haziness going on. Super bright. Alright, so let this dry. If you feel like you need to go over this, right, slightly sponge in a lighter red color. It's, yeah. Very, very lightly. Right, hardly anything left on my sponge now. I'm just trying to soften out. Right, so even taking pictures, guys, of your work, I'm telling you, it really does help a lot. I've learned a lot from trying to take pictures for you guys, for the step outs. And then all of a sudden I start taking a picture of that step. Like you think, oh, well, I'm not taking a picture of it till it's done. But definitely take a picture of it while you're working on it. And then you can see it from new eyes. You can see it from what it would look like 3 feet back, right? Because we're just looking at it way too close. And sometimes you see a lot more when you step back. So take a picture of it and then look at it through your camera, and then you'll see where you might have need to add more. Right, so we want this background to be really brilliant. Right, so again, I'm just trying to eyeball myself out. It looks like really blinding light here going on. All right, so I'm just trying to show you that sometimes when you look at it through your picture, through your phone, spin that around, drop it, straighten it out a little bit more. See if I can straighten it out a bit more. All right, guys. So hopefully you can see that, you know, you'll be able to have different eyes than it right in front of your face. All right, so yes, I stuck this back in here again. And what I love about the scrubby side, like if you guys got paint on your fingers, you know, you can always use your sponge in your water reservoir and your water to kind of rinse your fingers off a little bit. And while you're popping that in there. Okay, but obviously I've got it right up to my elbow probably. All right, again, so just be careful, don't drip over your painting while it's wet, because it will pull up. Okay, so of course we want it to blow dry. And then now what we want to do is use our scruffy brush with some black. And what I like to do too, guys, is just add the smallest amount of black in whatever you got left over here with your Prussian and your purple mixture going on. It's not going to matter, okay? Because I want it to be a softer black, right, than just using straight on black. Black purple kind of color, bluey, whatever you can get out of here. The smallest amount of black is going to take right over on this purple. Either or, combination of the both. It doesn't really matter, but I definitely want to have it not so black. Yeah, you can even put red in with that black just a little bit to soften it. Just a little tiny bit. Okay, so about a quarter of the way up. We don't need to be perfect. It could go just slightly up and down. We don't want no major hills going on. We want to just start off by blackening out. Right? Pick up more of that purple. You don't need a lot of that black. I have a little bit more fresh purple over here. Because I already have so much black still in my brush that it's not even hardly showing. But hopefully it will look a little softer. Oh, getting a little bit more purple hue now. You can wipe it out too on your scruffy brushes too, guys, if you've never used these before. You can definitely still use a really, really old brush that's lost its chisel, or a cheap brush that you bought that's all fuzzy on the edge, you can't do stroke work with. And definitely any of those brushes will work too. And so it's just basically a straight on kind of field. And then we're going to add our grass strokes coming off of that. So this is how dark it is back here, is because the sun is so intense that it just makes everything else look so dark. Okay, so just again, you want the sun to still be at least 3 fingers below this area here. So I'm just gonna scruffy the very bottom of my canvas. Well, I have it over here. Sometimes it's harder to go back and touch these sides up. So if you're doing a wrap canvas, then definitely take the time to do a wrap around. And that's blending in nicely where that red is. This side is a little bit off of that. So, and that's all we're going to need this scruffy brush for, guys. That's it for this size. Right. And then we will be using the 1/4 inch as well, so you're going to need both. But we'll come back and use that later. Okay, so just the large one right now. And then you can put that in water until you're ready to wash your brushes. And then you can carry on with all of your grass strokes. Okay, so I want to play with a bunch of different little brushes with you today to get you comfortable with some of them. The feather brush or fan brush is definitely a lot of fun to get things going. And then a lot of people are having a hard time with all those curly cues and fine liner strokes. So definitely we are going to play around with all of these brushes here. And so I want some of those longer grassy strokes to be up a little bit higher and individually. But at the very, very bottom, we want to start some main part of the thicker growth, right? So that's why I love to use a fan brush or a feather brush. If you're doing it small and you want more control, then definitely using the rake brush, they call it actually. Right? It says rake on the bottom. And then the feather brush definitely will give you a lot more quicker areas. And you can also use these on the chisel, guys, as well. Okay? So again, just as much as this is at the bottom, like maybe about 3 inches. Now we want maybe the next 3 inches of area 2 to 3 inches, right? of area to be just a little bit see-through. You still want to see all these beautiful colors. You're starting to introduce some of the thicker growth. Okay, so even while this is still a little bit wet, this could be still a little bit tacky here too. Just be careful not to touch it if it is. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm just going to go and put it into the water. Not too drippy. And then I want to come over and grab some of this purpley dark color here that I made. Right? I try it on a piece of paper first. Right? You're a little bit scared. And we don't want it to be too runny. So make sure you have enough paint here that you're kind of diluting. Try it on some paper, guys, first. Make sure that it's not a big glob. Alright? So you want to have some thick areas. And we don't want it so messy. Right? Because you go over it too many times, it's going to be too dark. We still want to keep some of that see-through color through. Okay? So you're starting to build off of that line here, right? But definitely you don't want it to be too many strokes, because then it'll be too dark, and it's going to raise this line even further up, right? So you want to make sure that these are just a little bit off, and around this area you want to keep them lower, but you can go up maybe a little bit higher. Let me try over here first. Right, so I got some really thick areas. Come up and use the chisel of this a little bit, right? But now it's getting too wispy, so I'm not getting those really long grassy strokes. So really make sure you keep grabbing some fresh paint, right? And then we're going to decide which way is this going. So this is going to go right off the canvas, guys, so you want it to kind of start in that direction. So you might have some that'll go up a little bit straight, but definitely you're starting to come off this area here a little bit higher. Right, hopefully you guys can see some of this darker area here that I just did. So coming off slowly and with a little bit of a bend. So down here it can be a little bit straighter. Okay, so make sure that you're not covering it really solid down here. Okay, so keep on getting fresh paint, grabbing it, slicking, flicking. Okay, so some of them can be longer and taller than others, but I definitely want to make the viewer feel like it's kind of going off. So I'm going to go straight and then flick off a little bit to the side. Keep grabbing fresh paint. And then when you have more control with your liner brush, right, we can detail some areas a little bit more, right? So less is better here. Try to really take your time and make these very skinny and thin. So hopefully you're practicing by the time you get over to the section here, right? But you're able to get some really skinny lines, guys. Really light pressure with this, right? So I'm not getting a nice line. I'm just going to stop, right? I don't want to keep trying to push too hard, because these are just introductions now, so I can definitely add to them a bit more later. Right? So again, I'm just trying to get the base kind of growing out straight here at the bottom. And taking some of my wet paint from the scruffy brush and just kind of softening the edge here, just to say this is going to still continue. I've got not enough water now, so when I went and touched the water, it was just up the very edge of my brush, guys. I didn't dunk it right in. Just very lightly, very slowly. And it's kind of scary here going off over. So stay low here. There's this little tiny bit. Beautiful person. There's that lower area first. And wherever you got some good thick spots already, take advantage of those. Add to them. It's not wet enough. And then at the top, I'm kind of giving it a little bit of spray look now. So we're on the top of one of these lines. So this is a nice one. I can come up, try to get over it again, and then just very lightly spray. Very, very tickles. Okay. I really want to still have some long, skinny ones. Okay. And some are going to go in really different directions, but I don't want them to be too thick, guys. So this is where we got to kind of stop. Oops. Bring these ones up a little bit higher. And see how if you put too much pressure, then they'll just be too fat. Right? So you would definitely want some nice skinny lines. And over here, see how I've been blending a little bit more on the side. You can also just use your fan brush to kind of use it as like a scruffy brush and just kind of soften the line where it's just that little bit on the edge here. Take advantage of whatever paint you got left there. I just want this to be a little bit watered down black, right? So that way you can kind of still see the glow of that yellow through the black. So definitely a little bit more translucent than the bottom here with the scruffy brush. So don't do it too much over here because it's a lot darker over here. Just a little bit of a blending so you don't really see a hard line. And the coverage coming through. If you see a little bit of red or whatever coming through, that's fine. It just looks like little shine marks from, the sun glistening on things. Alright, so this is definitely a nice spot to kind of stop with the fan brush because we can get a little too excited with this guy and do way too much. Alright, because it does give you a lot of results fast. Alright. You can try this one too. It's just going to take you a little bit longer. We can definitely still use that again if you feel like you want to use that to do some strong, smaller ones now. Right? And some of them can be a little bit more translucent, like more water. Right? So it doesn't have to be all hard lines. Just make it look like some of those grass blades are definitely further and further away. Right? So as long as you got some nice thin lines, like see that one's starting to get too wispy and dry looking. So I want to start to have some really nice strong lines, but still translucent, guys. Right? You still want that color to look a little bit soft black. Okay, but very, very thin lines. use this to get a lot done faster too. Okay, so you see through. You see that's a little bit of glow of white there, right? So definitely I made this little spot very heavy here, so I definitely don't want it to do any more on here. You stay away from the white area here. Like if it's starting to, build up a little bit too much, I'd rather kind of keep working this area here a little bit more. And if you want to add thickness to anything, it would be so that it slowly progresses into very wispy. Maybe in here a little bit more. And I'm just kind of feeling it, slowly building it up, because I know that you can't take it back. Right? So definitely at this point, you're not going to be erasing anything. But if you want to start adding a little bit more detail now, with the liner brush, oops, I spilled water on my, oh good, it's good, it was dry. Whew, had a little shock there from when I wet my feather brush there. Okay, so you're slowly starting to see that line disappear. But it's okay to slowly get some coverage and then have it not so black. And hopefully you'll see some translucent color come through. Okay, so now I'm like feeling like I'm lost control with, trying to get this because I get too excited and doing it too quickly. So definitely take your time at this, guys, so that you can get some really nice lines. You do want some wispiness, but then now with the liner brush, this is where we can take advantage and fix some of these areas because I don't want any more coverage. What I want is a little thicker coverage in like each one, like each grass braid. Okay, so I need to add more paint to my plate here. And anyway, still, I don't want it black, guys. So just a smallest pea of black, and use either the purple's been really nice. Actually, I'm liking the purple with the black. Just a little tiny softer. Alright, so I don't have to use all that black I put there, right guys? So we gotta water down this purple, introduce just a little tiny bit of black. Okay, so these gotta be really, really thin lines, guys. So you definitely gotta practice. That's way too thick, and it's probably because your paint is too thick. I'm gonna add a little bit of water at a time, and then swirl yourself out of your pile. A little bit more water over here. And then you're going to wipe your brush off on the towel. Right? And then you're picking it up just on the edge. Right? So test it out. See if you can get some really fine lines. Keep adding water, just like you're doing curlicues. Right, so I got some still mixed, but too thick, but I'm bringing over a little bit more to water down again because I got way too much paint here. Right, wipe it off on the towel and then pick it up just on the tips. Right, because we want this to go a long way. Right, again, practice on some paper a little bit. Right, so that you can get really skinny lines. Like I'm just holding on to this right now, so it's not very steady. Right, and then you're just going to slide these really skinny lines. Right, so if it's too dry looking, you need a little bit more water, especially on the paper. Right, Very light little tickles. Okay. So what we want to do, we don't want any more coverage. We definitely just want to intensify maybe a little bit more stronger lines. Grabbing some of these existing ones. Right, so as soon as it goes all wispy on you on the edge, you go and grab more paint. And go slow too. I tend to go too fast too. Trying to really go slow so it absorbs the paint. And you want some super skinny ones. Start flowing over. Add more water as needed. And take your time, go over them again. Keep adding water to your paint. Here. Keep it low. So we're definitely gonna cross over. These should look a little stronger. It's a mixture of different degrees of see-through black and just very super uber thin lines. Mm. Alright, well that's looking a little bit fuller now. This is more, I'm kind of actually from my picture of my inspiration. I actually already did too much, right? And I went up maybe a little too high. It looks like a line of them over here. So some of them should come up a little higher. And definitely there's some areas where some grass blades are a little bit thicker. So take advantage of those ones that you don't like. And try to make those a little bit thicker now. Right, so we've got one here, we can get that right off the page. And then really put pressure on some of these now that we're starting to build. Right, so whatever ones you don't like, we're definitely going to start adding some pressure. So we want some really skinny ones. And then here's another real thick one here. I can take advantage of that. I'm trying to nice long grassy blades. So the more contrast you have, like some really thin ones and some really thick ones, is going to help your composition. So we're also going to add a little other variety. So I want you guys to get that fan brush out again. So let's grab a towel, and it doesn't have to be super clean. And just add a little bit more water again. So we do want it to be a little bit thicker, guys, so we can come over and grab it from some of that thicker area here. And again, on the top of the edge of these, some of these grass blades, we're going to just pounce, pounce, pounce to make them look more like wheat. Okay, so we've got our nice fine lines here, and then we're just going to pounce a little wheat area here. Okay, so I can't push down on my paper because I don't want to put it down. Okay, so just a little bit skinny on the end, little tiny bit wider, and then back skinny again. Okay, so I'll put this sheet in your PDF for you too, so we can have a little bit of a reminder. Okay, so some of these definitely can be left as grass blades. Some of them definitely can look like they're far away, just make them really super tiny. And then some of them definitely you can make them a little bit bigger. Right, so you want them to kind of curl with the wind. Having a lot of different varieties of wheat and grass here. And I'm crossing over. I'm trying to stay a little bit away from my real strong sun line. Right, so that's probably enough there, just kind of scattering some a little bit lower. You have a nice line coming from them. Put a little curl on some of them. So that looks like they're really dancing. Over here, if you feel like your purple's not dark enough, you can definitely try to blacken it out a little bit more. And that's kind of it, guys. Really super easy. And hopefully you have fun with it. Maybe push yourself to do more with the lines. With the liner brush, right? So you can get comfortable with those really super, super little thin, skinny lines in there. See how you feel about your bottom here, if you need to use this to soften your ground level. I can always just keep it very low. Alright, so that's about it. Like I said, if you have any of them that you need to kind of make sure that you've got a nice grass stroke coming from these areas. Just trying to make sure that they look like they're connected to the grass. And then now we just gotta add our little glow. So hopefully when you've been staying away from this area here, is supposed to be, it should be a little bit dry. Okay, so we're gonna come over and take our little scruffy brush, it's dry, and pick up whatever yellow you have left here. Go over and pick up just a bit of white, so you do get a little bit of a dirty white, yellowy white. You definitely want it to be a softer white, not too yellow. Grab just a little bit of yellow on the edge so that if you want a little more definition you can. Okay, so right in the middle of the glow here, hopefully you have thinner lines than I do too. I think it might be a little nicer. So what I'm trying to do is give myself that little glow coming through. The sun is so bright that you don't even see the grass blade coming through it. I put a little bit of white for more coverage, a little bit more yellow around the edges. Soften out that look a little tiny bit. Right, we don't want it to have a strong line, so I just kind of blurred it out with my fingertips. And then right in the very middle here, I want to grab some fresh white and keep playing with this little spot here. Okay, so it should kind of disappear from your yellow background. Just kind of smudge it out, and you can almost see the grass, but you can't. And it's just using your fingers sometimes is nice too. Just to kind of blot it out around the edges. And just have it very bright so you can see a little bit of translucent color, so you can see those grass blades in there. A little tiny bit of yellow and white. Right, so we don't want to see a merge of yellow. I got lots of white in his background, so I'm just trying to kind of copy the yellow, the pale yellow that I have in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over this grass blade just slightly. Right, so it's streaking some of that yellow through. Wet on wet. And just very lightly freckling some more white on here. And some really skinny lines. And right now I'm pulling through some white in areas into this too. It's really cool actually from the wet. Alright, so just an illusion of that brightness coming through. So try not to do this too much, guys. I'm telling you, it's getting almost on the verge of getting dirty on me. And let this dry a little bit, blow dry it a little bit more. And it wants to go gray. But I don't want it to be 100% coverage either. It's just a little brighter glow coming through. A bit more white. As you're getting closer and closer to the center, you definitely want that to be a little bit brighter. There we go. And then just that really little bit of fuzziness. Gotta go a little bit bigger. There we go. Now it's starting to look like it's blurring through the grass blades. Okay. So play with it, guys, very gently. Right? Just a very light little fuzzy glow. Hopefully you can still see. Yeah. Yeah. You could use your liner brush to kind of poke, 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 and give an illusion of it too. But you see how quick it was with that feather brush, right? So if you had to do this design all with this liner brush, you definitely would have, taken all day to do this. Right here, I think I want another look of a grass blade there. Step away and see. Don't overdo it, guys. You're laying in the grass, the sun is going down, and you're enjoying the evening breeze on a hot summer hazy day. All right. Take a little lighter color here, maybe that gray, kind of gray color here, and then put my name. I don't want it to be too light. Oops, I don't like that. So as long as your background is dry, always wipe it off. I just want a hint of my name. I don't want it to be bold. So I'm playing around with my white and black to get the. Ooh, come on, give me a little bit lighter. There we go. Very, very gentle touch. And there you go. Just let that dry. Good. Still got some wet areas from our wheat. And yeah, I hope you like it. I can't wait to see your version of it. And I hope that, you see the benefits of having a really smooth canvas with all those extra coats and sanding in between. And these little grassy strokes hopefully are going to be really nice and smooth for you because they're not hitting all the little bumps of the weave canvas. So happy creating, guys. I hope you're having a fabulous summer so far.